Hello and welcome. I'm the Big Shot Critic, and today it's the Big Apple versus the Big Lizard. This is Dr. Niko Tatopoulos, or Nick. He's a scientist who has made an important discovery, but nobody takes him seriously. They don't even pronounce his name right.
Dr. Niko Tatopoulos. It's the Tatopoulos.
They just call him the Worm Guy, because he studies worms.
Yeah, you're the worm guy, right?
Nick could use some redemption. This is Audrey. She dated Nick in college, but let him get away. She has regrets about the relationship, and now she's a fledgling would-be news reporter who struggles with self-respect. Audrey could use some redemption. This is Philippe. He's French, and he loves his country. When France makes boo-boos, Philippe goes and takes care of them, and France has made a very big boo-boo indeed. Philippe, on behalf of the country he loves, could use some redemption. This is Roland Emmerich. He directed one of the most hated blockbusters of the 90s, but the truth is, it really isn't that bad. It's actually kind of good. Roland could use some redemption. By the end of the movie, Nick, Audrey, and Philippe will have their redemption. By the end of this video, Roland will have his. When we meet Nick, he's in Chernobyl studying earthworms and has discovered that the radiation in the area has made the worms 17% larger. It turns out this discovery is important because a certain lizard has grown larger due to radiation as well, albeit a little more than 17%. The military does have the good sense to go and get Nick when a giant lizard turns up, and he starts gaining the respect when his plan to lure Godzilla with tons of fish is successful. But when he makes an even more important discovery, that Godzilla is pregnant, his credibility is trashed due to the actions of Audrey before he can convince the military to find Godzilla's nest.
Pack your stuff, mister. You're officially off this project as of now.
When we meet Audrey, she's in a news office in New York City, and she's finally got the guts to stand up to her boss and demand an overdue promotion. But he makes it clear that this promotion depends on how his improper advances are received. Audrey's not about that. She goes to lunch with her friends and spots Nick on TV. With her friends telling her she needs to get tough, and her ex-boyfriend on the inside of a big story, Audrey makes her move. Audrey manages to meet up with Nick just as he's making the discovery that Godzilla is pregnant. With this inside information, she goes off and records her big news story. She watches with her friends when it's about to air, only to find that her boss stole the scoop. Meanwhile, Nick loses his consulting position with the military because he was the source of the leak.
He stole my report!
So Audrey is left with no big break and a big fat burning bridge between her and Nick. When we first meet Philippe, he is tracking Godzilla covertly and keeping pace with the Americans. He and his team place wiretaps and hidden microphones and follow the military's progress throughout the movie. When they realize Godzilla is pregnant and the military is not going to search for the nest, they know they have a big problem. And from there we get a climax where all three stories converge and redemption is had all around. The interplay between the characters is very smart and it plays out beautifully, not just with the story at large, but also within individual scenes. It's actually a pretty well-written movie. It may shock you to hear me say that because everyone knows the reputation this movie has. It's supposed to be awful. It's supposed to be dumber than dumb. I can hear you asking, is it really that well written, or do you just have a soft spot for it? And if it is that well written, how could it have the reputation that it has today? These are valid questions, and I do have a soft spot for it. You can tell because it's featured in my YouTube intro. But it actually is well written, and I can explain to you exactly why it still has a bad reputation. Godzilla debuted in Japan in 1954 and has only gained in popularity since then. There were 22 Japanese Godzilla films by the time this first American version came out in 1998. Godzilla was already a massive property with a massive fan base. Why does this movie have such a bad reputation? Because of the hardcore Godzilla fans. There are a lot of them, and they hate this movie. Before I explain why they hate it so much, let me explain how they could affect this movie's reputation so strongly. There are 3 groups of people who saw this movie, okay? There's the critics, the average moviegoers, and the hardcore Godzilla fans. The critics hated this movie, but critics almost always hate blockbusters, and everyone knows this, so nobody cared that the critics hated it. The average moviegoers thought this movie was fine. Nothing special, nothing terrible, just fine. And I already told you the hardcore Godzilla fans hated it, but the key difference here is that unlike the critics, the hardcore Godzilla fans are mixed in among the populace. The hardcore Godzilla fans are your friends, your neighbors, your classmates, and your coworkers. So, when people talked about this movie, there were 2 opinions. It was okay, or I hated it. Nobody defends a lukewarm opinion, and the hardcore Godzilla fans are all too happy to explain their reasons. So, the I hated it opinion became accepted as the truth, one conversation at a time. Fast forward a couple decades, and you get the reputation it has today. See what I mean? Now, I can also explain why the hardcore Godzilla fans hate this version so much. They'll tell you it's because they took away his atomic breath, or Matthew Broderick is a terrible actor, or Godzilla looked completely wrong, but none of that's true. What they really hate is the new origin story. Traditionally, Godzilla is a prehistoric and godlike creature, awakened by nuclear activity. In this version, Godzilla is just a plain old lizard, mutated by nuclear activity. This changes the nature of the character almost completely. Let me put it to you this way. They're both stories about nature reacting to the nuclear age, but where Godzilla in this version is just a lesson for humanity to learn from, the original Godzilla is more like the teacher who comes up and dishes out the lessons. This distinction is very important to hardcore Godzilla fans. It unsettles them. It makes them uncomfortable when they watch this movie. Most of them can't put their finger on what bothers them so much, which is why they blame the acting or the redesign or this or that. But really, it's the origin of Godzilla. So, now that I've explained where the bad reputation comes from and why it doesn't deserve it, let's get on with the final step: redemption. This movie has outstanding camera work and exposition. I'm going to show you a couple examples of the camera work first. And just to make it more fun, let's lose the sound. Let's see if you can tell, without sound, which of these characters are in control, which know what's going on, which don't know what's going on, which ones get no respect, and which one sees something that changes the dynamic. Pretty easy to follow, isn't it? That's good blocking and camera work. Now, let's compare it to a scene from Star Wars The Force Awakens. This is a similar situation with characters meeting each other for the first time who will be working together through the movie. Sure, the dynamics are easy to follow. The guy with the gun is the one in charge. But the Godzilla sequence has better composition and reveals more character, all while being more efficient. Only 2 cuts in the Godzilla sequence compared to 8 in The Force Awakens. And you could do even more than that. Take a look at this sequence.
Here at the command center in New Jersey, there is no new information to report because the military has clamped a total media blackout on whatever is going on out here. Officials are not saying anything about their attempts to...
We know where we are, we know who is there, and we know who is supposed to be there and who isn't supposed to be there. All in just 2 shots. Now again, let's compare this to another scene, this one from Skyfall. This is also a similar situation with 2 characters in one place, and one sees the other without being seen. This is very standard, establishing shot, one character is there, another character sees him, and it works fine, but Roland Emmerich took the time to do it better. And Godzilla is full of great camera work and blocking, just like that. The exposition is also far better than average. I'll give you just one example. This is the most obnoxious exposition scene in the whole movie, and it's still way better than average.
What is all this, some kind of spill?
Yeah, something like that.
Look, I work for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but accidents and spills are not my field.
We know!
Do you know you've interrupted a 3-year study of the Chernobyl earthworm?
Yeah, you're the worm guy, right?
The radioactive contamination in that area has mutated the earthworm's DNA. You know what that means?
No, but I got a feeling I'm about to find out.
It means that because of a man-made accident, the Chernobyl earthworms are now 17% larger than they were before.
17%, huh? Sounds pretty big.
They're enormous. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm a biologist. I take radioactive samples and I study them.
That's great. Here's your sample. Study it.
What sample?
You're standing in it.
I don't see it. Where is it? I don't see it.
Again, you'll notice a key part of the exposition is done in camera, the reveal of the footprint. And yes, Nick is basically reciting his career for the audience, but it makes enough sense in context because this is his first time meeting Colonel Hicks, the man in charge and the man who summoned him halfway across the world. And the joke,
You know what that means?
No, but I got a feeling I'm about to find out.
plays really well. Let's compare it to another scene where we get tons of backstory all at once. I talked about this one in my last review.
Your thoughts are very sad. Most are of one night. A night a man entered your home when you were not there. He stole many things and killed your wife and children. That is when you stopped being happy.
You see the difference. Nothing is revealed in camera. The man has read his own backstory from his own journal. Now, that's some of the worst exposition I've ever seen. Of course, it'll make Godzilla look good. So, let's take a look at a more typical example of poor exposition. I've trimmed up this 2.5-minute sequence from the movie Inception to show you every line where one character tells another character something they already know.
You never did like your office, did you? Extradition between France and the United States is a bureaucratic nightmare, you know that?
You're here to corrupt one of my brightest and best.
You know what I'm offering? You have to let them decide for themselves. You remember, it's the chance to build cathedrals, entire cities, things that never existed, things that couldn't exist in the real world. Those kids, your grandchildren, they're waiting for their father to come back home. That's their reality.
Interesting, isn't it? Once again, nothing is revealed in camera. There is a prop, the bag of gifts for his children, but even that has dialogue to explain what it is and who it's for. Bad exposition is a very common problem, even among very good directors. I'm not going to pretend Godzilla is perfect, but it's far from the disaster people say it is. Roland Emmerich did a really good job. People act like it's such an obvious mistake that he made, changing the look and origin of Godzilla. But you have to remember, nobody had ever done that before, so nobody was ever mad at it before. He had no way to know, and at least he tried something new. That's so rare with blockbusters these days. I do realize the irony of saying that just moments after dogging on a Christopher Nolan movie. He is the only one who tries anything new with blockbusters these days. Although Roland deserves redemption, his movie isn't perfect. It's an ocean of blacks and greens, which makes it feel very narrow. The helicopter sequence is almost unwatchable because the visual effects are so bad. And the structure is suitable but strained. It's a top-notch monster mystery for the first third, and then a middling cat-and-mouse movie for the rest. Guys, I give Godzilla 7 out of 10 commandments. It kept the second one. Thou shalt not distract me with bad writing. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and let me know in the comments below what you thought of Godzilla. Bye-bye.